Hello and welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, Sorcerer Arm Soul. Take number 3. Let's see if we can get this to actually record for a change. Alright. So, further down the rabbit hole, knowledge lecture number 4, Deities, Deific Masks, and Becoming the Gods. Alright, so I have this broke down in a few parts, and I created a talking point so that I could maybe explain this a little bit in depth. Make something that's really difficult to understand in the simplest, stupidest terms possible. So, with no ado, let's get this shit started. Alright, so deities, okay? Let's think of deities in this particular way. The way I've got it designed is I put them under category of spirits, okay? And then now we're going to discuss the different types and stuff. By no means is this, the whole or the totality of it, but these are just simple breakdowns of it in my words. All right, so first we got ancestors. All right, so the deities as ancestors, you got like ancestor worship, stuff like that. There is a thought or a belief that that the deities, could they be the ancestors of those who once lived, of humans that have ascended and gone on to become gods. But in this sense, ancestors. So, for example, how we working on this path of becoming the god or becoming the goddess within ourselves and bringing forth these forces and powers to become this power in the sense of ancestors to those who have come before us, and as we pass and we become an ancestor as well. To become a god is to become immortal, to live forever, so forth and so on, which the soul being immortal as it is anyway, you know. But when they talk about becoming immortal, they're talking about your consciousness existing beyond death. So, so that in the next life or in the next incarnation, you retain the memory. This is in some, these are in some worlds, the conceptualization of godhood. But we're not going to get too carried away with that. Let's go into the ancestor aspect. Okay, so as ancestors, we light our candles, we give our offerings of bread and water to the dead, and and we honor them. Not necessarily worship, but we honor them. We respect them because we take their knowledge and their wisdom that they've passed on and left to us, so that we can grow and become wiser in our own ways, so we can find our own path. Now, and then there's a concept of deity as egregores. Now, here's what I mean by a deity as egregore. Are deities egregores created by man? Did man make the gods? Well, you remember the first one with the ancestors, and I said, what if the ancestors, the gods were ancestors, or those who lived before us? Well, now let us go just one step further and look at deities as egregores or created thought forms. In a previous video I did on masks and things, we find that a lot of, like for example, let's use Belial or Asmodeus, or even Anu, Enki, and Enlil of the Simon Necronomicon. Are these egregores? Are they real gods? Are they real beings? To a degree, man may have created a mask and given them names, but the essence or the core nature of their spiritual being already pre-existed the names and the attributes given attributes given to them. Sorry, I can't speak today. But and so in this sense, some servitors, some egregores, they do exist and they were created by man. But this is not to say that all the gods were created by man, because in the sense of ancestors, their spirit lived on as your spirit shall live on. Is that to say in 2,000 years somebody looks back and says, hey, the god Waylon, blah, 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 he was man-made, we created him. You didn't create me, I created myself. And so in this sense, we must respect the fact that some of these beings are actually deities that already pre-existed. I don't disagree with the concept of a lot of deities being egregores. I don't disagree with that. What I do disagree with is the fact that all deities are egregores. I disagree with that completely. for the reasons that I've just given concerning ancestors, so forth and so on. Now, let's go into deities themselves. Deities is deities. Check that shit. Alright, so let's think of the gods. Whether Dingir, whether Loa, whether Asatru, anything upon any path, anything considered a god or a goddess, deity itself. Okay? Where do they come from? What is their thing? What is their rule? What is, all the details of them? Well, who knows? Because, you have deities set over planets and this, that, and the other. Well, a question I've always had is, though through working with them, you realize that they connect closely with a planet or an essence or a constellation or anything like that. But I've also found that there are some gods and goddesses that actually help mankind and some that care not to help you at all, that have nothing to do with you. And in this sense, I guess, and ritual practice and magic workings in general, when we're working with them, we're not just working with an external spirit saying, "Oh, come and bring me wealth and bitches." Okay, that's great and dandy. That's fun. Not gonna lie. But when you call upon deity, you're asking them to show you the deity that you are, the God that you are, the goddess that you are. And then let's go to nature spirits. Deity is nature spirits. Nature spirits, plant, sea, stone, sky. Okay, not to be confused with elements, but with nature. Like some of the earliest gods were the oceans. Earliest gods was the earth that we walked on. Earliest gods was the sky overhead. Some of them were the stones, But that, in this sense, deity is that because they're living as well. They give off force and an existential being, an intelligence all of their own, even though it's not the kind of intelligence like we have with the conscious and subconscious and reasoning and the reasoning faculties and logic and so forth and so on. And then all the way to deity as elemental forces. And what do I mean by deities as elemental forces? Earth, air, water, fire. When you think of the elements themselves, they're living forces and powers. These are considered deity as well. What is the concept of speaking about deities, deific masks, and becoming the gods? It's kind of a long, drawn-out thing here, and I've tried my best to keep this simple, keep it, flowing smoothly. But the thing behind this is to gain an understanding. What is deity? To argue other people's belief systems. Because things only have meaning and purpose to you only in so much as the significance that you've placed upon them. The gods that are real to some may be considered figments of the imagination to others. Neither side is wrong at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion because it's all based on perception. And perception is the hallmark or the base foundation of understanding how spirit interacts and how one day when you're not in this, you will be. Now, the second part of this video I wanted to go into was deific masks. Assuming God forms. How do you assume a God form? Well, I've done a video before where I was describing and I used Anubis as an example of imagining yourself with the head of a jackal or a dog and a black ebon skinned body standing upright. This is very powerful. That imagery evokes feeling and emotion out of you. And that is how you stir and awaken the forces that are symbolic of these gods that exist already within yourself. And this is called assuming God forms. Now when you're assuming God forms, what all God forms can you assume? Well, imagine the options are about as expansive as the number of grains of sand upon a beach. If you can think it or imagine it, it's possible. So the form in which you can create all these things is done the same way. Now, when you've taken upon yourself a God form in particular that works for you or that you want to work with, for example, let's say that you've been feeling down, depressed, sad, and you need some motivation, some kind of drive. In the Simon Necronomicon, a very good, useful one is Shamash, or Udu, the sun god. And why Shamash? Because Shamash represents the vibrant, buoyant life giver, like the sun. And so, you know, you would make a calling unto the sun god, and you would feel it. How do you assume the God form of things that you have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to look like? There is a mental exercise that you can use where you imagine a sphere, a circle above your head in the color, and in this case, gold, which is the color of Shamash, the sun god. Yellow, whatever color resonates the most with you. But according to the Simon Necronomicon, it's gold. So you'd have a golden orb above you. See it shining brightly like the sun's rays. Feel it dripping gold down you until you are covered in gold, till your skin is gold. This is assuming the God form of Shamash. This is an example of how you do it. This is how you can assume the God form of something that you have no idea what it's supposed to appear or look like. Because then you have absorbed the attributes of that particular deity. Alright? Now let's go into the second part of deific mask. Spiritual predatorialism. Consuming the gods, eating the gods. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, let's look at it in this way. All things must eat to exist. This is just true. You eat food so that the flesh continues. Animals eat so that they continue, and then we eat the animals, and so forth and so on. But where does spiritual predatorialism come in a system to where it's actually healthy, to where it's not driven by our ego or a thing that we're some evil thing that would devour the universe? Okay, well, we don't wish to be imbalanced, do we? We're just saying it's in our nature to devour. This is enough to keep grounded. But now the actual aspect or practice of spiritual predatorialism can be everything as simple as invoking a deity, absorbing its energies and imagining it going away, but you having its power, to everything from assuming a God form until it disappears and you're left with the essence and the energy. This is one form of spiritual predatorialism. There are more advanced ways, like Michael W. Ford. He's got a triangle of the arts where you would evoke the spirit, step in the center, and absorb it. That's another way. Now, why would you do this? There is a saying that through seals and symbols, our power is awakened and reawakened. And one of the ways that we do this is by absorbing or eating our gods. Because the idea is not to worship them, it is to worship the self. And to worship the self, you must exhibit these traits that you desire, because you are God. And if you're trying to draw the things into your life that you want, you have to have the energy and the dominion and the power to do so. And that's why I was explaining about how to assume the God form. And then in spiritual predatorialism, actually absorbing it and doing a mask, the form, the face. Because it's not about appearing like a god or anything like that. It's about being the god or goddess that you are. And then the last part of deific mask, the dietific experiences, mannerisms and traits experienced. For example, okay, if I was to assume the god form of, let's say Venus, for example, Ishtar Nana, okay, and I assume the goddess form, god form, get it, goddess, all right, and I assume the god form of Inanna, and I'm this beautiful chick. Yes, I know I'm sexy, but anyway, so I'm this beautiful chick, and everybody thinks that Inanna was all about love and all this, that, and the other. She was a goddess of war. And that's just how that works, Love and war, it's got its attributes are connected deeply within the subconscious of the psyche. Well, anyway, so I assumed the beautiful form of this sexy luxurious chick, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm the goddess, yo. And I absorb her attributes and her energies, and I take away the form until if I were to look in a mirror, I would see my face, but I would be giving off the essence and the energy of this goddess. Well, it may be instantaneous that I start feeling differently, or it may be long drawn out over the days. Depends on how long I'm exhibiting or, holding on to those energies and things. You know, I might find myself very loving and very compassionate. And at the same time, I might also find myself, going after people who threaten the ones I love. You see how this works? Those are the traits. These are the experiences. It's always best in the beginning to find a deity or deities that are simple, that have, basic traits that you're trying, that you desire to exhibit. And this keeps you more on a common ground, on a level ground, on a really cool basis. And then the more you get used to it, the more you're experienced at it, you know, then you can start messing with the so-called infernal or demons or any of these other things, because they're all spirits. All things are spirit. With that in mind, let's go on to the becoming the gods part of this lecture. Awakening and becoming the god goddess. The very first one, transcendental awareness, seeing existence from a higher perspective. When you get past the everyday common you, and you've set aside time that you're going to have this mystical, spiritual, religious experience with deity, and you're assuming God form and everything else, and you're exhibiting this, expect your mentality to change. For example, with the example of Inanna as a goddess of Venus, of love and of war, okay? How would seeing existence from a higher perspective be experienced with her? Example, like I was explaining to you before, you'd find yourself more compassionate and going after others. But at the same time, the transcendental aspect is where you start to realize that one of the most important aspects of living is to love and be loved and to defend that thing. Defend your relationships. Defend, bonds, stuff of that nature. You will treat others differently, with more respect. You'll treat yourself with more respect. And this is considered transcendental awareness. This is where, as my Damon likes to say it, this is where all the clairs hide. Clairaudience, clairvoyance, clair this, clair that. You get the idea. These are the experiences that come with it from seeing and hearing. Your vibration is raised, and you are no longer just you. You are you as this particular god or goddess. And there is no such thing as right or wrong, good or evil. It just is. Spirit is spirit. And you must always keep this in mind. And the reason why we do this is so that we have a productive, positive experience when doing this. Now, the very last part of awakening, becoming the god and goddess, is something I called resonating. You resonate from the core of self. This is the godhood experience. In the example of Inanna, I take upon myself Inanna's form, sexy that I am. I take upon her compassion and her ability to defend and fight for what I love and I care for. Okay? And then I absorb her. I eat my goddess. That sounds dirty, but you know what I mean. But I eat the god, meaning I remove the illusion, the mask, the face that's been created. And I become the goddess. As a male, yes, but I become the goddess with these powers and these forces and these beings. I then experience the energy, and they feel, and so forth and so on. When I have reached this point, it is called resonating. When you resonate from yourself with any of these powers, you are having what they call a godhood experience, or as the Christians or the religious, a religious experience where God has entered you and has fulfilled the covenant. It's funny. My covenant is between me and the gods. Gods, plural, not singular. And this is the point of every single bit of this. And, I know that this video, it might have sucked, but at the same time, I also know for a matter of fact that it wasn't as in-depth as I would like to go with it. And the reason why is because I'm kind of on a time limit thing. And some of it's the fact that I try to keep things so simple so that no matter who you are, you'll actually get something from it and experience it. Now, some of you might be asking, well, what gods or goddesses would be good for starters, for beginners? Any of them. Any of them. Simon Necronomicon, Norse gods, Scandinavian gods, any of them. Any of them. You just need to find one that represents qualities that you want in your life. Now, what is the whole point of doing this? If we're gods and goddesses, why are we calling in the other ones? Because through this spiritual experience of godhood, the parts of yourself that are like the gods are awakened and empowered, and then they're combined. Like a gem has many faucets, the many faucets are the gods and goddesses. So you're having a spiritual experience, and you're not only refining yourself, but you're awakening the powers within yourself. And because of the part of spiritual predatorialism, where we absorb them and eat them, and like I said and explained, it's about where they're formless. They have no form. You are exhibiting truly just what they are without the mask. This is the point of the entire practice. And then you say, I am the God. I am the goddess. I am the God-goddess is one. So forth and so on. This transcendental experience from having done this kind of working is transformational. At the same time, it'll bring things from the depths of the subconscious to the conscious, and you will have to face them. Don't be scared of them. Face them, recognize them, admit to them. But then work to heal them and overcome them. To overcome your weaknesses, to see your weaknesses truly are strengths, not weaknesses. That what others think is a weakness has made you stronger than if you had not had them. With that being said and done, I wish each and every single one of you peace, blessings, and power. Till next time.